Take off.
All right. Kenny Pickett in year 2, and it hasn't been perfect. It's been far from that. You could point to the struggles with the play calling. Matt Canada now coming down from the booth. What's your offensive identity? Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth injured. Look, it hasn't been perfect. And right now, it probably hasn't been maybe what you'd hoped it would have been with the 20th overall pick. But here's where I land, Ike. Who else was Pittsburgh supposed to bring in post Ben Roethlisberger that you could point to where right now you know without a doubt in your mind that would be better? I don't see that quarterback out there right now, Ike. And maybe you say, well, look at what Josh Dobbs is doing for the Minnesota Vikings. Well, guess what? It wasn't just Pittsburgh that passed on Josh Dobbs. Jacksonville, Cleveland, Detroit, Tennessee, Cleveland again, Arizona. And this is not an anti-Josh Dobbs segment. I like Josh Dobbs.
Right.
But you're talking about a second-year player who's still trying to figure it out in the league. And here's how the Steelers are winning football games, Ike. Here's how. They're turning the ball over defensively with takeaways, and they're not turning the ball over the ball offensively. They're tied for first in takeaways with 18 through the first 10 weeks of the season, and they're tied for first in turnover ratio at plus 10. Kenny Pickett has the longest active streak in the NFL without throwing an interception. Yeah, do I want him to take shots and opportunities and light up the scoreboard with Deontay and George Pickens? Yes, absolutely. Is every game going to dictate that you do that? No. Does it need to be better? Absolutely, yes. But I go back to this, and you can criticize Pickett. He's in year 2. If you think that, Ike, you're in the front office, Omar Khan isn't evaluating this to say, hey, is this the guy? Should we pick up his 5th-year option? Is he the future of the franchise? You're evaluating that for every single player on the roster every single day. But point me to the quarterback who would have been out there who would be better than Kenny Pickett right now. And in the 4th quarter, he's performed, and I saw it yet again against Green Bay, if not for a pass interference penalty on the Steelers, which was questionable. Right. Guess who they trusted with the ball in his hands late in that game against Green Bay? And I'll step off the stage and do my mic drop because it's just the criticism is so undue considering the Steelers are 6-3 right now. It's ridiculous.
So, Mark, I look at it like this. And we've been calling Kenny clutch for the past, for the past 5-6 weeks. And here's why, Mark. Like, as a fan, as a scout, as a former player, I'm looking for somebody like Kenny. Kenny don't come around too often in the 4th quarter. And the one thing we do know about Kenny, if you need a drive late in the game, Kenny gonna wake up. And that's hard to find. Just look at some of these quarterbacks that we see who have the talent, who have the arm strength. But in the first 3 quarters, they look real good. You look for them in the 4th quarter for that drive, and guess what? We talk about them all the time. They just can't close out. So not only do you have a pitcher, and I look at Kenny as like a good pitcher, he pitches good enough just to keep you in games, but he's also the closer. So usually you get your closer, he come in the 9th inning, K, strikeout. That's Kenny. So I'm cool with us having to work on or have to wait for Kenny the first 3 quarters because I know the defense is going to give him. If we can control the ball, control the clock, defense play the way they've been playing, I'm cool with that. I know in the 4th quarter, if we need a drive, there's nobody else I want but Kenny because he's always coming clutch. So I'll take the first 3, keeping us close. Kenny, close the game out. Then have us flame through the first 3 quarters. The game is close, and I can't find Kenny. So I'm taking Kenny all day. But you said it right. Who else you want to get? You know, for me, from that quarterback position, Kenny was born and bred in Pittsburgh. And what I mean by that, he went to the University of Pitt. He saw Big Ben play. He saw the playoffs. He's seen it. He's played at Arkansas Stadium. Like, that's home for him. So ain't nothing new for him. So every time he's at the crib, everything is clutch for him. He knows what it is. He knows what it is to be a Pittsburgh Steelers. He didn't heard the history. He didn't seen the history. So I ain't got to go nowhere. So you mean to tell me I play quarterback and I just got to hop over to the other side of the building? I know exactly what I'm doing. So I like Kenny, man. I always did like Kenny, and we saw how clutch Kenny was towards the end of last year. And I'm talking coming off that Miami loss. The Miami loss proved everything I needed to know about Kenny.
Yeah, it's how you respond to adversity. And again, it has not been perfect this year. I could point you to stats that where the passing game hasn't been what it needs to be. But are you better off at the end of the year than you were at the start of the year? I think the more and more he plays on a rookie deal, the better and better he's going to get too. Right. And it's just like, again, I go back to, okay, if you're not happy with him, who's out there? And if people are watching this, if I'm missing someone that's out there, like Ike, when this has come up in my mentions, and this is not to throw any other individual player other than Kenny Pickett under the bus. The segment's about Kenny Pickett.
Right.
But I've had in my mentions before of, well, what if the Steelers had traded for Kirk Cousins before the deadline? And it's like, well, why are we going to pay Kirk $35 million for maybe marginal better performance when Kenny's still on his rookie deal? Like, what are we talking about? Right. And so it's like, yeah, right now, maybe it hasn't been what you'd hoped with the 20th overall pick. Maybe the Steelers decide after his rookie contract's up, maybe he's not the guy. Maybe he is. Maybe they pick up his fifth-year option. Maybe they franchise tag him further down the line. But you have to let him play to answer those questions. And I'll say this too. When Kenny Pickett decided to play after his rib injury, we know what Mitch Trubisky can do in this league with 50-plus starts in his career. So it's like, again, if people are watching this, and there might be one or two names who would be like, yeah, maybe that would have been a possibility. I remember with post-Roethlisberger, I brought up, when we were talking here on the show, I said, could Aaron Rodgers be a fit for the Steelers? And you thought I was nuts. And they would have had to give up a lot to get Aaron Rodgers. But point me to the quarterback right now, given where the Steelers were at in the draft, with salary cap constraints, with the other needs of the roster, that would say, oh, yeah, that guy is a tangible upgrade compared to what the Steelers got with Kenny Pickett at number 20. And the answer is that player doesn't exist, Ike. We're talking about – I just get so wrapped up in this because I see other media members talk about where for a long time it was the criticism of Canada. In the last 2 weeks, you have the identity of running the game. So it's like, well, maybe now Canada's not the problem. And they want to point the blame. Your team's still 6-3 and would have the first wild card slot right now if the season ended today. I don't understand what it is that we're talking about. And so this is why I think people enjoy our show, Ike, because look, like, yes, it's a Steelers show. Yes, I always try to approach things glass half full. But how many other franchises would love to be in your slot right now, in your position right now? And it really bothers me with Pickett because, again, it's been far from perfect, but it could also be much, much worse. And guess what? Mike Tomlin doesn't lose. This is his 17th year. He's on his way to another winning season. You're not going to be in a position to go get Caleb Williams or Drake May or one of the other stud quarterback prospects. And you're not going to be in a position to do that. And why would you want to be when you look at across the division? Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. Deshaun Watson might finally start to be figuring it out. So I don't get it. This is why we talk here on the show. I'm rambling now, but I get really fired up about this because it's people that just really do not know what they're talking about.
I know a lot of guys with talent. They got a guy named Josh Allen. They sitting at 5'5", big, 6'5", 240, arm out this world. Got a cannon.
Justin Herbert in the Chargers.
Justin Herbert, Chargers. So I know a lot of guys that look prototypical, but I know when you need a drive, who you can call on, you can call on Kenny. So you can say what you want to say. Like, for me, Kenny is the perfect fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they can say what they want to say about what they think a prototypical, quarterback should look like and all the traits they need to have. Man, give me that Tom Brady trait. And when it come down to that last drive, I'm not even saying Kenny is even close to Tom. I'm just saying a trait. And I know with 3.5, 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and the game is close. Kenny gonna close out the game. He gonna make that drive. He gonna put some points on the board.